The Italian Alps are exploding with avalanches, and right now, 500 people have been evacuated by helicopter as entire villages are completely cut off from the outside world. Picture this. Skiers waiting in line at a chairlift look up and see a wall of white roaring down the mountain toward them. Children try to ski uphill. Adults freeze in place. And within seconds, every single person in the frame vanishes into a churning cloud of snow. That footage went viral within hours. Millions watched it. Most people assumed that was the worst of it. They were dead wrong. In just the last 10 days, 75 people have died in avalanches across the Alps. That is 3/4 of what an entire season normally kills. And the season is only half over. A passenger train has been knocked clean off its tracks. Roads have been buried under walls of snow so thick that rescue teams could not even reach them. Families who drove up for a ski holiday went to sleep in military barracks because there was no road left to take them home. And across the border, an entire world-famous ski resort shut down completely for the first time in 25 years. But here's the detail that no one is talking about. The avalanches did not just happen because of heavy snow. Underneath the surface of these mountains, there are hidden layers, fragile, invisible, and fracturing. Layers that experts say are nearly impossible to detect. And the terrifying part is not the danger level right now. It is what happens when the danger level drops. Because that is exactly when the crowds come flooding back onto slopes they think are safe, while the mountain is still hiding what is underneath. 3 experienced skiers who knew these mountains better than most went out on a clear morning and never came back. And more snow is forecast in the next 48 hours. So here is the question that avalanche professionals across Europe cannot stop asking. If 75 people are already dead, and the season is only halfway through, how many more is the mountain still planning to take? To understand how the Aosta Valley arrived at this moment, you have to watch the week accelerate. Because this disaster did not arrive without warning. It announced itself, day by day, with bulletins and alerts and closed borders, and the mountain kept going anyway. On February 10th, Fondazione Montagna Sicura, Italy's Mountain Safety Institute, issued a bulletin that stopped forecasters cold. The snowpack had entered a critical phase. Fresh snowfall had been building since Tuesday, and accumulations were forecast to exceed 1 meter above 1,600 meters elevation. For context, that is more fresh snow than most Alpine regions see in an entire month, arriving in days. By February 11th, the numbers coming in from weather stations were staggering. Instruments at 2,400 meters near Courmayeur recorded 100 centimeters of new snow in just 48 hours. That is over 3 feet of fresh snowfall, landing directly on top of a snowpack that was already dangerously unstable underneath. The mountain was being loaded like a spring being pushed further and further down, and everyone who understood what that meant was watching the pressure build with growing dread. On February 12th, the Regional Avalanche Bureau raised the official danger rating to level 4 out of 5, classified as strong. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued an orange alert across the affected regions. But the response did not stop at the Italian border. Across the mountains in France, authorities at Chamonix made a decision that had not been made in a quarter of a century. They shut down every single high-altitude ski area. The entire Paradischi resort, including Les Arcs and La Plagne, 2 of the most visited ski destinations on Earth, closed completely. The first time in 25 years. In Tignes, authorities ordered thousands of residents and tourists to stay indoors overnight. Nobody was permitted to leave their hotel. The mountains that had drawn these visitors from across Europe were now holding them in place, and the alerts kept climbing. Each morning brought a new bulletin. Each bulletin brought a higher number. And across the Aosta Valley, emergency coordinators were watching two things happen at the same time. The snowpack was becoming more dangerous with every centimeter of new accumulation, and the mountain towns below were filling up with visitors who had come precisely because of all that fresh snow. The conditions that avalanche scientists fear most are not the ones that look terrifying. They are the ones that look perfect. And on the morning of February 12th, the Alps looked absolutely perfect. The mountain was ready, and almost no one on it knew what that meant. To understand why these avalanches are so deadly, you have to understand what is actually underneath the snow. Because what is happening in the western Italian Alps right now is not simply a story about heavy snowfall. It is a story about what that snow is hiding. The Aosta Valley sits at the center of one of the most dramatic mountain environments on Earth. It is ringed by four of the highest massifs in all of Europe: Gran Paradiso, Mont Blanc, Grand Combin, and the Matterhorn. These are not just famous names on a map. They are enormous walls of rock and ice that shape everything about how wind and snow behave in this region. And right now, they are making the avalanche crisis significantly worse. Here is the mechanism. When powerful northwesterly winds hit these peaks, they do not simply slow down or scatter. They scoop up massive volumes of snow from the windward side of the ridgeline and carry it over the top, depositing it on the leeward slopes below in dense, compressed formations. Avalanche scientists call these formations wind slabs. And wind slabs are, in the words of the experts who study them, the loaded chambers of the mountain. But wind slabs alone are not the full danger. The real threat is what lies beneath them. Weeks before the current storms arrived, the snowpack in these mountains went through a period of cold, dry weather that allowed a specific type of snow crystal to form deep within the pack. These crystals are fragile, loosely bonded, and structurally weak. They sit in buried layers that can span hundreds of meters across an entire slope face. When fresh snow or a wind slab presses down on top of them, those weak layers do not compress. They wait, and when the pressure becomes too great, or when a single skier passes over the wrong point, they shatter. The entire slab above them releases at once. Federico Catana, spokesperson for Italy's Alpine Rescue Corps, told the Associated Press that the dangerous points are many and nearly impossible to identify, even for an expert. A single skier's weight, he said, can be enough to trigger a catastrophic release. That is the detail that makes this snowpack so uniquely lethal. The surface looks like any other winter mountain. It is bright, clean, and undisturbed. There is no visible sign of what is waiting underneath. No crack, no sound, no warning. The mountain gives nothing away. And in the Aosta Valley right now, that invisible instability stretches across some of the most heavily visited ski terrain in Europe. The loaded chambers are everywhere, and most of the people skiing above them have no idea. By February 13th, the bulletins had been issued, the borders had been closed, and the danger ratings had been raised. The warnings were real, and they were loud. And then, on a snow-covered trail above Gresson-La Trinité, the mountain stopped waiting. A 44-year-old hotel worker from Milan was walking alone when the slope above him released without warning. There was no sound before it happened. No crack in the snow. No signal of any kind. One moment he was walking. The next, he was underneath 1.5 meters of snow, with the full weight of the slab pressing down on his chest, compressing his lungs, and dropping his body temperature toward the point of no return. In the seconds before the snow sealed completely around him, he did one thing. He pulled out his phone and dialed 112. Dispatchers picked up the call. They heard 2 words before the line went dead. "Sto andando. I'm going under." Rescue teams mobilized immediately, moving through terrain that was itself unstable, accompanied by avalanche search dog Kamar. They worked for 3 hours. When they finally reached him, his body temperature had fallen to 27 degrees Celsius, and hypothermia at that level is survivable, but only barely, and only with immediate intervention. He survived. And that survival, remarkable as it was, would be the last piece of good news to come out of the Italian Alps for days. Because that same Friday, in Val d'Igne, 3 skiers entered a slope that had been rated level 5, the maximum on the European danger scale, just 24 hours earlier. 2 were British, 1 was French. All 3 were experienced. All 3 understood the mountain environment, and none of them came out alive. 3 people in a single day. 1 who managed 2 words into a phone before the snow took everything. 3 others who had no chance to call anyone at all. The gap between those 2 stories is not skill or preparation or decision-making. It is seconds. It is which slope, which moment, which square meter of snowpack happened to release when it did. That is what makes this snowpack so psychologically devastating for the people who work these mountains and the rescue teams who comb them afterward. There is no clean line between the ones who survive and the ones who do not. On February 13th, one man's voice cut out mid-sentence under 1.5 meters of snow. 3 other people never got the chance to speak at all. The mountain had begun its count, and it was not finished. One factor in this crisis that the avalanche bulletins do not measure. One variable that no danger rating can fully account for. And in the Aosta Valley in February 2025, it may have made the difference between a dangerous season and a catastrophic one. On February 6, 9 days before the deaths in the Couloir des Vessées, the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics opened for business, and with it, tens of thousands of visitors from across the world began flooding into the Italian Alps. They came for exactly what the Alps were offering: dramatic mountain scenery, world-class ski terrain, and after days of heavy snowfall, the kind of fresh powder conditions that skiers spend entire winters chasing. The mountains looked extraordinary. The conditions looked ideal. The timing could not have been worse. Federico Catana, spokesperson for Italy's Alpine Rescue Corps, did not mince his words when he spoke to reporters. He warned directly that the snowstorms had attracted adventure seekers eager to take advantage of fresh slopes, and that as a result, the number of accidents and fatalities had increased proportionally. Not slightly. Proportionally. The more people on the mountain, the more triggers on a snowpack full of loaded chambers. This is the paradox that avalanche professionals struggle to communicate, and the public struggles to accept. The conditions that draw the largest crowds to the Alps, deep fresh snow, dramatic scenery, untracked powder on open faces, are, in this specific type of snowpack cycle, among the most dangerous conditions the mountain can produce. The surface reads as an invitation. Underneath, it is a trap. And the more experienced the skier, the more likely they are to seek out exactly the kind of terrain where that trap is set. Experienced freeriders do not ski groomed runs. They seek out the off-piste routes, the couloirs, the untracked faces away from the crowds. Those are precisely the slopes where wind slabs have been building and weak layers have been waiting. Skill and experience do not protect you from a fracture that spans 300 meters of snowpack. They just take you closer to it. 2 forces were tightening around the Aosta Valley at exactly the same moment. The mountains were becoming more dangerous with every centimeter of new snowfall, and the mountains were becoming more crowded with every flight that landed at Turin and Milan. Neither force knew about the other. The visitors did not know what the snowpack was hiding, and the snowpack did not care how far anyone had traveled to stand on top of it. The collision between those 2 forces was not a question of if. By the morning of February 15, it was already a question of where. Sunday, February 15th. The danger rating across the Aosta Valley was sitting at level 4. The bulletins had been clear for days. And at approximately 11 in the morning, 3 friends from France's Savoie region made a decision that thousands of experienced freeriders make every winter in the Alps. They chose a route they knew, a line they had likely studied, discussed, and planned. The Couloir des Vessées in Valvenie, above the town of Courmayeur, one of the most popular off-piste descents at the foot of Mont Blanc. They were not reckless tourists. They were experienced freeriders. People who understood mountain terrain, who read avalanche bulletins, who had spent years developing the judgment that backcountry skiing demands. These were exactly the kind of people the ALPS are built for. Exactly the kind of people who come to Courmayeur in February and look at a line like the Couloir des Vessées and know, with genuine expertise, how to assess what they are looking at. The slope released anyway. Eyewitnesses standing at the base of the gully saw the moment before it happened. Then they saw the moment after. Hugo Navel, 31 years old, was found lifeless in the snow. A second skier was airlifted to Perini Hospital in Aosta, where medical teams worked to bring him back. They could not. The third, Alexis Rassat, 29 years old, was buried under the snow for 40 minutes before rescue teams reached him. He was airlifted to Molinette Hospital in Turin, where he fought through the night. He did not survive the following day. The response to the slide was immediate and enormous. 15 rescuers deployed to the site. 3 K9 avalanche search units worked the debris field. 2 helicopters coordinated the extractions. Every resource that could be mobilized was mobilized. It was not enough to change the outcome for any of the 3 men buried in that couloir: Hugo Navel, Quentin Phillips, Alexis Rassat. 3 friends from the same region of France. 3 people who knew these mountains well enough to be trusted on one of the most technical off-piste routes in the valley. They had skied terrain like this before. They understood the environment. They had made the kind of careful, experienced assessment that separates serious mountain athletes from casual visitors. The mountain did not care. That is not a figure of speech. It is the most important thing to understand about what happened in the Couloir des Vessées on the morning of February 15th. Skill does not negotiate with a fracture line that spans hundreds of meters of snowpack. Experience does not slow a slab once it releases. The investigation into whether the skiers triggered the slide or whether it released naturally remains open. The mountain has not provided an answer. It rarely does. The deaths in the Couloir des Vessées did not slow the mountains down. They accelerated. On the afternoon of February 15th, within hours of the rescue helicopters leaving the site above Courmayeur, a separate avalanche buried Regional Road 24 in the Reims Valley. No warning, no time to clear the route. The road that connected a cluster of mountain villages to the outside world simply disappeared under the snow. The villages went with it. Residents woke up the following morning with no way out and no timeline for when that would change. On February 16th, the crisis crossed the border. An avalanche near Goppenstein, Switzerland, struck a passenger train moving through the Lochberg corridor, one of the most critical north-south rail links in the entire Alpine network, carrying freight and passengers between Northern Europe and Italy. 29 people were on board. 5 were injured. The rail line shut down completely. The slide that derailed that train was not a remote event on an uninhabited slope. It was a direct strike on infrastructure that tens of thousands of people depend on, in a country that had been watching the danger ratings climb for days and had believed the trains were safe. They were not. By February 17th, the scale of the crisis had reached a point that emergency coordinators had not planned for. Approximately 100 tourists had traveled to the village of Reims Notre Dame, a small mountain community at the foot of the Grand Paradiso Massif, for a day of skiing. In the early afternoon, a massive avalanche released above the valley floor and buried the only road connecting the village to the outside world. There was no secondary route. There was no alternative exit. There was simply the snow, and behind it, 100 people with no way home. Helicopters began shuttling evacuees out immediately, ferrying groups to the sports area at Immaville's in relay after relay, as the afternoon light faded. The final count reached 250 people, airlifted from a single valley in a single operation. 30 evacuees, who could not be returned to their homes that night, were transferred to the Ramirez military barracks in Aosta, where they slept in emergency accommodation while the road remained buried. 250 people, one valley, one afternoon. When those numbers are placed alongside everything else the preceding 7 days had produced, 3 dead in the Couloir des Vesses, villages sealed off across the Reims Valley, a derailed train in Switzerland, 13 killed earlier in the same month alone, snow depths exceeding 3 meters in the upper valleys, and 75 avalanche deaths across the Alps, with the season only half finished. The full shape of the crisis becomes impossible to minimize. The mountain had stopped sending warnings. It was simply moving now. On February 18th, the official Aosta Valley Avalanche Bulletin was published. The danger rating was level 4. The tendency listed beneath it was a single word: constant. Not improving, not stabilizing, constant. In the language of avalanche forecasting, that word carries a specific and sobering meaning. It means the conditions that produced everything described in the preceding days. Buried roads, derailed train, the 3 friends from France who never came home, the 250 people airlifted from a single valley. Those conditions had not changed. The snowpack was still loaded, the weak layers were still buried, and more snow was forecast to arrive within 48 hours. But the most dangerous development was not the snow that was coming, it was the warmth. Forecasters had identified a midweek warming trend moving into the region, and the implications were significant. When temperatures rise after a period of heavy snowfall, meltwater begins to work its way down through the snowpack. And when that meltwater reaches those buried weak crystal layers, it does not stabilize them, it lubricates them. The result is a wet snow avalanche. Wet snow avalanches are a different category of threat entirely. They are heavier than dry slides. They move differently. They carry more mass, travel farther across flat terrain, and push into places that dry avalanches never reach. The villages that survived the first wave of this crisis, because of their position on the valley floor, may not be in the same position when the wet slides begin. The investigation into the Couloir des Vesses remains open. The red zone boundaries in the Reims Valley have not been finalized. Across the professional avalanche community in Europe, one conversation keeps returning to the same uncomfortable point. When the danger level eventually drops from 4 to 3, the slopes will fill again. That is not a prediction. It is a pattern with decades of data behind it. Level 3 is statistically responsible for more avalanche deaths than Level 4. Not because it is more dangerous in absolute terms, but because it is the level at which people decide the mountain is safe again. They come back. They read the lower number as permission, and the snowpack, still riddled with the same weak layers, still hiding the same fracture lines beneath a surface that looks completely undisturbed, will be waiting for them exactly as it was before. The danger rating will drop. The crowds will return. The mountain will look like it always does in February: white, clean, and silent. And underneath, nothing will have changed at all. Pull back from the couloirs, and the buried roads, and the helicopter rotors, and look at what the Aosta Valley is actually telling us. Not just about this season, about what is coming next. 75 people have died in avalanches across the Alps this winter, against an annual average of 100, with the season only half finished. 3 friends from France's Savoie region, went out on a clear February morning on a route they knew and trusted, and all 3 of them are gone. 250 people were airlifted from a single valley in a single afternoon because one slope released above the only road out. A passenger train was knocked off its tracks. Villages vanished behind walls of snow that no bulletin, no orange alert, and no closed resort could prevent once the mountain decided to move. These are not isolated incidents connected by geography alone. They are connected by something more fundamental. A snowpack that built in silence over weeks, layer by layer, crystal by crystal, loading pressure onto fracture lines that no instrument could fully map and no expert could reliably predict. The mountain did not announce what it was building. It never does. The rescuers who worked the debris fields of this crisis did everything right. The forecasters who issued the bulletins read the data correctly. The emergency coordinators who airlifted 250 people from Reims Notre Dame executed a massive operation without losing a single additional life. The systems worked as well as systems can work when the thing they are measuring is a mountain in the process of releasing stored energy across hundreds of meters of terrain in seconds. And still, 75 people are dead, and the season is not over. There is a question that sits underneath all of this that no danger rating and no bulletin has yet answered. How many more villages in the Aosta Valley, in the Swiss Alps, in the ranges that stretch east toward Austria and Slovenia, sit at the end of a single road that one avalanche can permanently erase? How many snowpacks across the northern Alps are carrying the same buried weak layers right now, beneath the same clean white surface, waiting for the same combination of fresh snow and rising temperatures and a single skier's weight on the wrong square meter? In the Aosta Valley, they recovered everyone from the snow this time. The rescue teams reached the buried, the helicopters reached the isolated, and the barracks in Aosta housed the ones who had nowhere left to sleep. But the snowpack is still there. The weak layers are still buried. The warming trend is still moving in, and the mountain has not said it is finished.